Hi. Hey, I'm glad you're with me today. I'm going to have a little bit of fun with your mind, if you don't mind. Hey, this first expression is something we hear quite a bit. The proof is in the pudding. We call it an idiom because only I think idiots would really understand these things. Because I've eaten a lot of puddings in my life, but I've never had a proof as being one of the ingredients in the pudding. So that obviously isn't what it means. We kind of put a meaning to it. It's just you'll find out later if whatever you've said or done is correct, because the proof will be what happens later. That's what kind of we think it is, but that's not the way it started. All these words meant something different in the past. This expression started hundreds of years ago in England. The pudding they talked about was not that sweet thing we eat today. It was the intestines of an animal, and it was filled with like meats and cereals, and it was steamed, and, and maybe blood was stuffed in there. I mean, it was a treacherous thing, And so you could eat it and get sick, but you could eat it and die. So for them to be sure it was okay, they had an expression, and they said, "The proof of the pudding is in the eating." Now, the proof didn't mean like proof like evidence, like in a trial in a court. No, the proof meant like testing, proofreading, that kind of testing. So the testing or the proof of the pudding was in the eating. If you ate it and you didn't die, it would be all right. That's kind of the way it was. Here's another one. Let's talk about another one of these idioms. Something like the exception proves the rule. You remember that one? We say that. We always say that when we do something is not the right way. People say, "Well, that's not right." Well, that's the exception. It proves the rule. It doesn't prove the rule. It is really quite contrary to that. It disproves the rule in many cases, and it dates back actually to Roman times, and this expression was used. But it meant the testing once again. That proving was the testing. So no, the exception tests the rule. You'll either have to throw the rule out and rechange it, or else the rule will remain intact. This exception would not have damaged it in any way because of the circumstances. Here's another one. If you thought those expressions kind of made your mind go blah 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 blah, let me just fry your brains completely. The third one I want to talk about is you are dead and you are alive. Now, how can you be dead and alive at the same moment, right? That seems kind of strange. Well, that actually could be explained by the paradox of quantum entanglement. Now, I know that it sounds kind of crazy to you. That's 1935. Albert Einstein and a couple of other scientists had discovered something very strange. Like they were doing quantum mechanics, like that's at the base level, the atomic level of things, and they found that if you had a dead item, a cell, not a cell, but an atom, and you had a live atom. So you could sense motion, you could see energy in the one, but the other one didn't do anything. It was dead. And they're separated from each other. They're not connected in any way. But you could stimulate the dead one. And when the dead one started to do something, it affected the live one. But if you did something with the live one, it didn't affect the dead one. So the dead can make something alive. So there was some entanglement between forces here. You can be dead and still affect the living. That doesn't make any sense, does it? And they've been trying to find out for all these years, and science still doesn't know, what is the forces that connect these two things, the dead and the living. They don't know. Well, if you go back in the Bible, it says to you that, let me say it again, you are alive, but you are dead. That's an expression that was made by Jesus Christ himself. And he made that in his revelation to the churches. And in Revelation chapter 3, he's talking to the church in Sardis. And this church thinks they're alive by all the things they're doing, but he's saying you're really dead. In other words, he's saying something about them that's dead, even though they appear to be alive. And what does that mean? You have to go right back to the beginning of the Bible, when God made man. He said he gave you everything. He made everything. He made you in his image. He made you in his likeness. You're like God. You contain his glory. He wants you to show his glory in his creation. But he also said to mankind, just do these things and don't do this one thing, because if you do, you'll die. And they did it. But they didn't die. You didn't see them physically die, because what died was a spirit. And through all the ages going down, through the DNA of people, all the way down, death of the spirit has been the mankind's role. And he had no way to get back to a relationship with God. And that's when Jesus Christ, the Son of God, had to step into his own creation. And he came into the world. He didn't come into the world so that we could be saved and go to heaven. No, he came into the world so that he could bring heaven to us. You see, what happened when he died and they put him on a cross, he took all this dead spirits that had happened through all creation before and all creation after, and brought that with him in on the cross. And the spirits of all mankind were crucified on the cross with him. And he replaced it with his own spirit. Yes. Elsewhere in the Bible it says this: we have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. It's telling us that if we simply accept Christ as our Savior, he'll come inside of us and live inside of us. He'll be a living spirit, replacing that dead spirit that does nothing. And that spirit now can speak to what we consider to be the living. We're not living. We're dead spirits. The living is what we're going to be as a spirit after we leave this frame or body, this mortal pieces of created cells. We're going to be a living spirit, all because Jesus has asked us to be that and to be his representation on the earth. I know it sounds crazy. I don't have a lot of time to go into it right now. I think I'll carry a little bit more on this in a future lesson. But I want you to know, that's not an idiom. That's not a play on words. That's the truth of God. We don't understand it. It's a mystery. But we have been crucified with him. And it's no longer you or I who live, but it's Christ who lives in us, giving us life into our spirit. Thanks for listening to me. See you again next week. Bye for now.